invite all to participate, to contribute with bringing questions in order to enrich this debate. So this subject is quite old. Nevertheless, it has few literature and debate inside our community. That's why we are bringing the subject today here. Therefore, we can start to deal more with the subject, who is quite interested to our community, because I am sure that once we have thought about writing a book, so that's why this is an important subject for all of us. First of all, I would like to reinforce my congratulations to the team. In this room, we have Eduardo, Luimara, Isabella. I want to reinforce the congratulations to the Tertuliarium team, the translators teams, and the role of CEAEC, who is helping us to spread this Claritaskal around the world, and the role of Virginia, who is. Therefore, I am very happy to, in order so this Tertulia can be translated into English and Spanish. So this is what a nice surprise. I also want to reinforce the congratulations to my colleagues that are here with me and day by day. So they have also experience around this subject. So I have Miriam, Osvaldo, Rosani, and other colleagues. So I will start to talk a little bit why I was interested in this subject. So you guys have already this paper who is available in YouTube. So I wrote a few ideas just for us to warm up the debate. I start this research, give or take 1 year and 6 months ago, when I started to be part of Editaris. And I have been perceiving how important it is, how great it is to work with the books. Since the moment we received the original, since the moment we received the first ideas from the author, and how this entire process is important, and then at the end we can conclude with a beautiful book, with a coronation of a beautiful book. And this has no price. And I understand how necessary it is for those who intend to write a book, either a book or an article or a verbete, whomever it is, whatever it is, everything needs to be publicized. So there is no way we cannot just materialize ideas. We need to adjust, to qualify those ideas. So it's important for all of us, for people who write, to be able to understand how this process works and why this is important. Because it is important to diminish the anxiety. It is important to understand. It is not like, perhaps a few of us will have the idea that we have some insights and we would like to publish, and there is no miracle. So it's important to understand that we qualify, we grow up as authors, and also the construction of everything we are writing. So sometimes we readjust, and sometimes we will perceive that at the end, a very nice conclusion, a very nice book would be able to be materialized. So I am showing this book here. The name of this book I'm showing is A Vida dos Livros, the book's life. And she has been publishing books for more than 40 years. And she has a very nice way to explain that. In the page 79, she mentioned that a few publishing knowledge is important. Observe, analyze the books around yourself and try to discover how to build your own book. And this is interesting to know because it will diminish the expectation, the author's expectation. So the construction is the result from the art of the author. So at the beginning, we have many papers, many pages that we have read and that we have wrote. And at the end, we will have a very nice book. There is another book about Stephen King, which is about writing. And he used to reinforce that the publisher, they are always right. Because without this work of publishing the original, the text would be nothing more than a collection of papers or a collection of pages. Would be so when we start, perhaps we think as authors, we think that our book is okay, is concluded, but actually it is raw. And then another thing I would like to reinforce with you that I have been preparing during these weeks, that I was preparing my paper and writing down the slides. My first job, long time ago, I was placed to be building the internal bulletin, a kind of a little newspaper, those who, so I was responsible for writing down, reviewing, and being able to publicize the book and the paper, the bulletin. And this is connected with my biography. About the role of the editor, about the role of people who are related with that, it is hard to have material around that. Of course, we can find many things about writing, because without writing, we will not be able to publish the book. And of course, I understand it's important because at the end, we need the book and we need the author. So the editor, they work as an extra physical concierge because it is there over checking everything, but he or she or they are invisible for the others. So if the book is okay, if the book is correct, if the book has few mistakes, the editor, they will never be showing themselves. But nevertheless, if the book needs logical, needs logistic, needs more work, because the first time people will do is checking the page number 4 and checking who prepared the book. So, and then we can understand that authors and editors, they are attached. So the author I showed you before, Teresa, she used to reinforce, she used to say that the book is like a being. It will be there forever. So we have a group karmic interpretation, if we can address that. So the relationship between both author and editor needs to be worked better. And now I will be sharing my slides here for us to start to chat more, to chat better about this subject based on slides. So let's go ahead. So how are we going to start our conversation this morning? I will be talking about the historical approach to the origin of books. I like to know how this subject started, how was the origin of the books. So we are going to talk about the role of the Claritaskal publisher, the perifacts regarding publishing, and also the publisher profile, because we have a bit of a difference because we work with a consciential paradigm. And this is important and interesting for us to bring to this chat today. We are going to talk about a few casuistry related with the subject and the effects of Claritaskal publishing. So we are going to start with a definition. The Claritaskal publishing is the set of functional activities of the publisher involved in the elaboration and monitoring of cosmoethical and self-relaying conscientiological works developed in the non-profit conscientiocentric institution under the age of consciential paradigm. So we are here recovering some things that we wrote in our past or letting something to rescue in the future. So it is developed in the conscientiocentric institution with non-profit. Then we are going to talk a little bit about the history in a very brief. We are going to address that in a very brief way as retrocognitor agents. So it is important for you to be aware about the repercussion that the things that we are going to talk here. So the first writings that we have a few ideas are the stone tables, and they were found in Mesopotamia. So they use symbols. No, symbols were used to represent complex numerical data of administrative liability. So we are now talking about 3,000 years before the Common Era. So writing start by accounting, or by the need of doing things in a day by day. So like we have down here, it was an administrative account of Bailey distribution with a cylinder seal printing of male figure. And these symbols, they were developed and they were used to count the history of the community, the day by day, the education. So the first books that we are aware of are those instructions to Shurupak, which is 2,600 before the Common Era. It is the oldest known book, and it was about the Sumerian wisdom literature. So he used to wrote about the day-by-day things. No, he used to talk for his son and he would say, my son, do not sit down next to a married woman. And another thing that was written back then was this epic of Gilgamesh, which was back then the greatest literally work on clay tables. And then the Western translations that do not reach 16,000 words. It was more or less 160 pages. So this book talks a lot about things related with writings and publishing. So after those tables, we found the cartes, which they were easier to transport. So it was unrolled as it was read, and the text was mostly written on columns. So I brought this papyrus plant for you to see, and then the virgin papyrus, and then the written papyrus. This is in the Museum of Switzerland. And this papyrus might have many books in columns. So the papyrus, they might be reaching 20 meters also. So this is in the book, for example, as we can see, this is the book of that written on papyrus, which is exhibited at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. And there is also a very interesting book that talk about the written word. In this book, perhaps this person was the curator of the Library of Alexandria, and then the Library of Pergamon started to become a very quite strong, quite important, and then perhaps few people became a bit jealous, and then the Italian people start to move themselves and they start to write it down, and then they create the pergaminho, the sheepskin. And then we have also one verbete talking about the palimpsest, which it means scratch again, which they would be writing down, and then after they would be scratching and writing down on top of it. And then the advanced, which it could also be written on both sides. After that, we advanced to the codex, which is a compilation of pages that appeared in Greece as way to encode the laws. It was perfect, and it was perfect by the Romans. And the consequence of the codex was starting to think of the book as an object. It was interesting to collect. And then those books, they were made by sewing, by letter, depending on the financial issue, they would be building and creating a book with sheets of gold. It was something very important and very delicate. This is that I'm showing is a Bible. And it is important to bring also the origin of the word book, the genesis of the word book. It popped out more or less on the second century, century 2. And it appeared with extraction of the papyrus layer that is found between the wood and the altar bark. And it was the part of the free plant. And then with the time, advancing a bit more, in 1455, Gutenberg invented the printing press with visible, and then the first book printed with this technique was the Latin Bible. And it's important for us to reflect about how easy it is to publish a book. The amount of things we have about everything. I recall when I made that bulletin long time ago, I used to type with IBM machine. Today we have computer. We don't need to scratch and rewrite again. Many things that are optimized, that are connected with us sitting down and placing our hand and start to work. And then I will ask Louis Mara if anybody had asked anything. Structure Lani, good morning. So far, we have the congratulations and felicitations about your history research. And then here I went to look for the first publisher. Those who can write with this research, I was not able to find many things. I found Titus Pomponius Atticus, 110 and 232 before the Common Era. He was a Roman knight. He moved to Athens and he used his resources to study. And then he lived 20 years in Athens, and there he was 20 years there trying to understand better the Greek culture and the writing, and therefore he became an editor. He became editor and he helped Greek authors. He was a very good friend of Tullius Cicero, and people used to say that Cicero loved to debate with him because they have different ideas and they like to debate. They like to debate a lot. It was like when we sit down with a friend and when we debate ideas, and the ideas, they grow up. So it is more or less like when we are with the publisher, with our book, talking together and trying to debate with editor. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Claritaskal publisher, which is the Conscien, the Conscientiology volunteer, motivated and available to assist the author in the various stages of editing the Claritaskal work, which involves reception, embracing, preceptorship, supervision, mediation, and publication of the consciential gestation. This is the paper. This is the role of the editor. So talking about our experience, nowadays we have an editorial council with folks who has a lot of experience about this work. And then the book arrives since the first interview in which the person arrives with its originals. And then this person will have someone responsible to accompany the person until the end, until the publishing, the moment in which he or she they will be publishing the book. And this is important to give a security to the author, and it will cause an important connection between both. So both, they will be there hand by hand, wanting the best for this Claritaskal to go towards the cosmos, because the product will be assisting many people. That's why I think the understanding and the connection between both will be giving an important assistance. So the more they adjust themselves and they create a flow in order for them to walk together, the Claritaskal will be arriving. Important points. Why it's important? The volunteer, for example. How in a non-profit organization, if your book is there, almost in all the phases until the book is ready, they will be done by volunteering. So there are non-financial issues. So it's important to be tranquil. There is no connection with financial issue that usually it will be causing problems. So this situation is important. Another point is the qualification. So the volunteers, they are concerned about the preservation of conscientiology, how this context will be reaching from there and be preserved until the end of the times without any type of distortion. And we have this concern there. It's important to reinforce that the publishing work takes into account the author's dedicating writing effort. So a book is never ready to be published. The author needs to get ready with the feedbacks, with many feedbacks related with that. There are many things that we usually don't publish because we are afraid of feedbacks. And we are afraid of people thinking that that's not ready. So this is a kind of a stupid thing. It's not necessary. We are leading the assisting ones without the assistance. So I thought this pensata was quite interesting. So I found this. I found this pensata in a specific book in which they would say it was written that not talking, being mute, is something very serious for us to think about it. Profile. When an editor, for example, have a book or have a book to analyze.
Related to the publication, to the author, from the beginning, they needed to keep the holocene of assistancy. And one thing that is important to highlight that nowadays in the editaries, what have we done with our council of editors in order to avoid the anti-apriorism? So currently, the editor does not choose the publish. So the publication it goes to the editors. It's kind of more a synchronicity rather than a choice. So when the person gets some publication, the person doesn't know which one is going to reach her. And the person needs to look from more assistential point of view and having a connection with the author and help to that publication to be the best that they can do in this time in their evolution. And commitment to the publishing work take into account the author's dedicated writing efforts. As we were talking before, sometimes the author take years to dedicate themselves. We have some publications that the author take 10 years to publish that. And sometimes it's because it takes a long time for the author to deal with the heterocriticism about their publication. So the author needs to embrace that feedback and change, rewriting the publication, and also return to the editorial flow. So when the author, the book, it is in the editorial flow, the author needs to take advantage of that. And the author need to interact with the editor and the author, and we need to keep in mind that there is an assisted person waiting for that publication. So as quick as you can to leave that publication to be published, it's better. So the intrusion, the intrusion, the intrusion, binomial. This is for everything in our life and for this process as well. Sometimes we see that the author got a little bit self-intruded or because of feedback or something. So what is the role of the editor? It's just ask, is that everything all right? Do you want to talk about anything? Can we help you with anything to make this flow return to be able to publish as quick as possible? And then we have verifiability. Is the desired revisional ego eyes. It's important you do not be lazy. You revise as many times as necessary in order for you to have that publication without errors. As I said before, there is no publication without errors, but they can be minimized as much as we can. As we talk here, the desired revisional ego eyes, being attentive for the details. Something I saw in this book from Maria Teresa, she says, the revision, it's for professional. The best author does not know how to revision. And the best revision is still learning their work. So the best author from their work, they won't be able to see what they need to change. It's kind of a blind eyes, a blind points. And the revision, the editor, or the reviser, they will learn as they will ongoing process. Now, as much as practice, they will learn. And when I started, I noticed that I learn every work I've done, throughout every work I've done. So the best reviser is still learn their work. So the errors or the mistakes that you need to find is the ones that are hidden. So it's some errors that many people pass through and they didn't pick up that. So each day you start to improve that ability. And I was looking at the live from yesterday. He was talking about he was a reviser and then he became an editor, and he would have many revisions. So he would touch one point and he has to reorganize everything. So sometimes you go for such a long time into that sometimes he had a clear audience that he will get the page before you pass some error. So because he was so concentrated, you do a rapport with the helpers, and the helpers end up helping you, and they will pinpoint those errors. Very interesting, this process. So in here, another aspect, retro lucidity, the recalling of retro experience combined with a bibliographic context. It's the union of author and editor, and it can give this opportunity, these recollections or sometimes memories that come or impressions that you have responsibility about that publication, and this has a responsibility with the author. I put here there is an urgent need to unteach anti-cosmoethical retro approach and potentiate intellectual retro success. I found that it's very important that we look at a work that we do with the author and the assistential work, and we need to overcome our immaturities between people, and in order to get the assistance with that will come from that publication. Tutoring provides aid, clarification, support throughout all stages of editing. So and then we have paraphathology. This is the minimal that about this phenomena that's involved. First is the helpers, the perception, interaction with the triad of helpers, of the writer, publisher, and of the theme itself, participants throughout the entire process of editing. So the editor that it's attentive, the publisher attentive to that, the press will observe that. In Conscientiology, you can't work without the helper. If it's not happening, it's because you are not having the coupling with those helpers. And another aspect, the flow, the convergence during the works editing process of the publishers, ideation autoscenic flow, which promotes a mental somatic confluence with the neo-verbons explored by the author, expanding the interassistential work. When everyone it's get an affinity enter into this affinity, they start to enter into a flow that sometimes an editor that never heard about that subject will have an expansion of understanding of itself. And talking about the synchronicity, that's the Pensato Vieira. Synchronicity always occurs, but it increases when there is a convergence of astrophysical helpers' assistential interests. So it's like this. The synchronicity is there, but sometimes because we are not attentive, you do not see. But when you enter into the flow, they start to happen. And in this sense, I'm gonna give you some casuistry about these some things. I was contracting some material, and then I opened a book to look at the television, and I accessed a program in 1 hour in television about that subject And I found very big synchronicity, no? It's the case here. It's this lady, Luciane Müller. She was homeless from 4 to 11. The father was an alcoholic, a very complicated life. And she will go to the library and spend the whole day there. So you have this at the publication. And so she will spend her days at the public library and sleep around the building at night. And you might think, what's the retro experience that she brought about these things? So it's very interesting. No, and she turned her life around. Nowadays, she's 40 years old. She's editor, she's a writer, and she has her own editing place. No, and the other one, I couldn't really not to fall for him. So he is 7 years old, and he resident of Kratos, Ceará. And he did a cultural fridge. See him. If more people read, we'll create a new future. If we pick up a book and put down the cell phone, we will finally be able to discover a new story, a new world. Imagine the maturity of this boy. He sits there and he waits for the people, his colleagues, and he waits for them to pick up the book they need to pick up in the day, and they have a time to return that book. And imagine the retro experience that this boy had that brought him to this experience. So effectology is the crescendology. So it's the just chronological crescendo: reader, reviewer, writer, and editor in the fixation of new synapses related to writing, editing. Professor Valdi used to say that the interesting thing it is you start to read more, you have your eyes more details to put detail, you start to review some newspaper, and then you get animated and start to write, and then you turn into an editor. So it's a very interesting crescendo. Then these, in terms of the effect, you become more attentive. No, the protection and continuity of conscientiology science, and then the retribution, the cleaning of karmic debts between author and publisher due to the work of mutual assistential retribution. So both are working in the work of retribution. And then I think this, in my opinion, it provides us reconciliation, the reconciliation opportunity based on the hypothesis of experience among peers for a cosmoethical, like the peers. So it's very interesting when the person has to think what does exist in that relation beyond this relationship, and what opportunity am I having with this person and with this thing. So I think it's very important for us to reflect about it. Then publishable themes, in terms of in the organization without profit. So the themes dealt with in the conscientiological work are distinguished by the content that contributes to the enrichment and expansion of the consciential paradigm with an original and Claritaskal approach. And things that we avoid is publishing of books with anti-cosmoethical, anti-scientific, dogmatical, fictional, mystical, and consciential contents. We work with the science of conscientiology. So any publication that comes with these the themes that we avoid, we are not going to get it. We want the approach, the scientific approach about the science. And the typology, the types, to give some examples of some 8 most common type of publications to be editable in the conscientiology universe: anthology, dictionary, encyclopedia, newspaper, book, manual, journal, and treatise. So we have a range of types of publication. And then I come here for the questionology, in terms of a real understand of Claritaskal publishing process is possible only by experimenting graphic assistance in the role of a publisher. In reality, this is an invitation for people who has affinity with book, that like the theme, that they understand, as Professor Valdo and other authors as well, understand that at the end what we live is the book. We can be the best volunteer of the universe if we are acting at the consciential circle organizations, and after a few years you just disappear from universe. Nobody gonna remember you, but your publication will be left behind. So if someone has affinity with this and would like to work with editorialization or and want to publish books as well. So and then the questionology: are you, the reader, motivated to be a publisher of conscientiological books? What do you need to position yourself in front of the work? Are you think of assisting as a book publisher in this lifetime, or are you going to wait for the next Rizoma? So I just would like to leave this for a reflection. So I finish this first part of a presentation, and now I'm going to open for our debates and questioning, and if it's necessary, I will come back with some clarification in some aspects. I will stop to share my screen. This grew excellent, Professor Lana. Exactly with this last approach, we have a question from Pituba. The edition and publication of the publication, it's has an objective to access people all around this plant, and also even the author themselves to access that publication. I would like for you to approach a temporal approach of this subject. Let me see if I understood. It's an idea that I was developing before. It's the book survive to all of us. So the more you make sure that you materialize a book, it will be more productive for all of us. First, you are going to be able to be here and to talk about the book. You're going to have still an age with lots of energy to spread the clarification task, because the book you can write and give to editor to do divulgation, to spread that information, marketing the book, or you can go yourself, give lectures and take to the bookshops to talk about them or to market them, no? So another thing possible about that, you are putting at the time capsule, so you are self-relay that the probability of you access the book in another life, it's greater. If you work, if you're going to work out the attributes like the parapsychism, you inevitably going to work assessing that books. When you talk about in terms of other parts of this planet, it's like what we are doing here. So you take your book and we translate, and in terms of to access around the world in other languages, and for the person intermissivist or not to access that work. So Professor Osvaldo gonna talk about a little bit about this. Good morning, Lana. Thank you for your invitation. I think it's perfect, your answer. But there is one thing that it comes up in terms of the production the book, from the revision of the author, the editor. It starts from nobody writes a book by themselves. We need to be attentive that the book, it's an object of gathering people. The book attracts consciousness from the moment that they start to be written. Sometimes you haven't only even write by the moment that you start to think about that theme, you enter into that holocene. And this won't stop from the time it's published. The book will attract your readers. I do not go to the public. I'm going to write for some specific public. I'm going to write, and the people will come towards that book as long as that book does the clarifications necessary. So I just would like to compliment is the book, it's a gathering object. It attracts people. So the consciential paradigm, it's a crumb, it's the book, it's not a set of pages. It's only, there are lots of consciousness that are involved with that, and there is not a unique author. Whoever wrote a book about conscientiology knows this. You are just an anchor. You just at a point of anchor of that subject, but you give a voice to many conscious that needs to express through that theme, and they need that theme in order to go ahead in their path. Great. Rosanna, would you like to talk? Good morning, everyone. Excellent presentation. I think it brought all of us, people, a little bit of the reality of the work of editor's work, what's edited work, and how much this can contribute for the author and the editor as well. And I would like to go with Oswald said, and to do my observation. He said the situation that the book, it's a collective action. So it's we enter into a very cool aspect when we sometimes it's the first aspect that shock for the author. So the conscientiological book, it's a collective action, not only from the person. And then it comes an aspect of from the editor point of view. I remember I have lots of experience, and when I started work with editor, I already had that from my professional life. And then I start to observe when you work with a text, how you work and you affect the ego of the other person. But let's talk about from the editor point of view. When you brought that the holocene or the comment about the publication of the text, there is related to the text, there isn't a text that is untouchable. So I think this is a very important point for us to approach. You spoke about from the author point of view, but also I would like to focus as well from the editor point of view. What could you share about this exercise of helping someone to improve their writing and to allow the person to allow to be helped? No, how is this ego work between them, no, the author and the publisher? And you brought this in your presentation, and I find that's very important we talk about this. What can you go deeper into that? In relation to this, I find very interesting, based on my experience, sometimes you get a feedback from something you wrote. It comes other mechanisms behind the view from you do not allow the ego to be attacked, and then you have pride, you are the last biscuit, or you are the worst person, writer. One thing that helps a lot is the person just listen. I see that the process of feedback with the author, I'm talking about in terms of book, it is very assistential because we have people that the editor of the book and the author, and we have the reviewers, and sometimes it's 4 people, and then we see when people start to talk, the feedback about the publication, and the person starts to justify, and the person starts to defend themselves. You do not need to do that, because this is not an attack. It's actually a contribution, and then the person that we have 2 people that from Conscientiology, we have 2 people that give that the feedback. Okay, for the ones that are volunteer, total volunteer from editors, they are the editors that they are sitting in that room. So the editors, they are mediators of that contribution. I think that I see that if the person listen with attention and take the notes, so I did that. I hear all the heterocritics. You need to write down because otherwise you forget, and take to your lab or the time of reflection and sit with yourself, and see if there is a logic. Sometimes some things they do not have logic, but you have a reason about that, and you can give the feedback about that. And from those heterocritics, I think I really took advantage of 99% of those reflection. Just listen and do not refuse. Just listen, attentive. We have Miriam. She wants to talk now. I just would like to complete what you said. I consider Editares it's as a editor that has give us security and para-security. We are writing a book with astrophysical team and intraphysical team as well. And this book might survive decades or centuries. So I think when you write the originals, many things sometimes they are in excess, and we do not perceive that. So when this publication comes to be reviewed and to receive the first revision, the technical evaluation, as you said before, we choose 2 people from the specialists on about that subject. At the moment you receive a feedback in many questions. So it's do you have some apology, some moralism, self-victimization, dramatization, concepts in this in your publication? They are incomplete. The arguments, they are superficial, they are fragile, so weak, or they are strong, they are vigorous, because we can't forget that every conscientiologist that write a book, they are expand the science of conscientiology. Our commitment, it's obviously with ourselves in the self-relay, but in my point of view, I think it's beyond of that. We are the operators of our science. We expand through our knowledge the science of conscientiology, which is interassistential, mental somatic interassistance that we are doing through the book, but interassist to the author, but the author with the helper, with the editor, which doesn't, they can't, they are not only the helper, the intraphysical helper, they are just expand a knowledge about certain aspects that are waiting for the correct people, you know. Rosana talked about the ego. More than ego, we need to have the cosmic vision. So we are the scientists of the conscientiology. It doesn't matter if I'm writing a verbiage or an article or a book. I'm representing that at the moment this science conscientiology with my writers and where I apply and the consciential paradigm. Only to finish this, at the moment you receive your first feedback that has been said to you, and I've done this. I did with my colleague Eliane Manfroy. We had we were very careful. We know sometimes an author has journey. It takes 10 years. Sometimes they give 10 to the friends, and people gave feedbacks. And when they arrive there, they reach there with a saturation. And so in this first feedback, even though it seems quite general but technical, the person will receive the first impact. It's the first feedback about what they wrote. And it's very important that we do this very careful in order to avoid that the person just put that in a box and do not do anything about that. I think it's the flow, the editorial flow. It's very well helped. The editors, they are an agent of mental somatic interassistant. They can't see as an enemy of the author. I just would like to contribute with that.
Pode falar, Guilherme. A Luimara quer falar? Quem vai falar primeiro?
Guilherme wants to talk. Can I talk? First of all, I would like to say thank you for Lani to bring this subject for us to debate here. It's quite important due to we have a quite big community of writers talking and thinking about publication, and Editaris has an important role inside of that. And also Lani to be epicenter in this, those activities. I want to mention that the publisher, even the author presenting the book before thinking about giving to the editor is the first person who is going to review in a more technical point of view. And he might see some blind spots that are not clear enough for the author. And even the strong trait from the book, even things that are clarifying, and perhaps that the author had not developed so much that he or she, they could be amplifying. And then perhaps the author itself, it might clarify that, might spread, might talk deeper about those strong traits from the book itself. My question is, I remember when you started to write your book, we talked before Conscientiology and ICCC. We have many institutions and many structures that help the author in the process of writing. I would like to talk a little bit about the before and after. So before arriving with the book in Editaris, for example, in UNESCOM, and also the role of the author after the publication. It's important to say that the book does not finalize when it is publicized. The author needs to talk in more about the book and how can the author proceed after launching the book. Thank you, Guilherme, for the contributions. Before answering your questions, I think it's important to reinforce the strong trait from the author that is perhaps it's not there in the book. Towards the new author that wants to arrive with his book or her book in Editaris. So I recall I talked with you, if you thought was logic, that subject, I recall you were talking, I recall we discussed, and then you reinforce and you help me, you direct me to UNESCOM, and then I spoke with Mabel, so on and so forth. And then Mabel told me, well, it is logic, go ahead. And then I went to write down the book. So I think it's important to understand and to go to UNESCOM. UNESCOM has today courses, laboratories, courses to develop the mental soma, to talk about the mega GISCOMs. And they also have a graphotoscenic consulting. No, sometimes the author has a sketch about what the book will be. In order to see if that has logic or not, it's good to mention that in Editaris, we have already 192 books publicized. Among books, treatises, journals. So it is important to pick this first guideline to see if this flow is, if the book's flow is okay. And then the after the publication is you picking your book and do lives, First of all, today it's fantastic. Before, we needed to go to the hotels and be all together. So the more you can talk about your book, not being mute, and not being mute, not diminishing yourself in your manifestation, it's important. We have many consensus-centric institutions that you can talk about your book, you can establish partnerships, and we have our mattership, which is IIPC, and Miriam is talking. I would like to complete the activities. We have a course in UNESCOM to help authors. We have immersion into writings. We have mental somatic de-intrusion, laboratories, just chronographics, laboratories, many activities that help the author to align. Every semester, UNESCOM it has been amplifying the possibilities for all of us authors that might be receiving help from our colleagues that are helping ourselves to write. Perfect, Miriam. I think it's exactly that. Just to conclude, so just one thing. Nowadays in Editaris, we want to promote books and we can't talk with the authors. We see that perhaps a few authors would not be available to talk about the book. And this is exactly the other way around. So when you wrote down your book, your intention is to be using your book to clarify. it is like your son, no? It's like if the book is your son, you need to embrace him. I would like to reinforce that beyond the activities that Miriam mentioned, we have the weekly dynamic.
Tem o Holopensene do laboratório, que agora está sendo possibilitado online, tá? Então, é uma atividade também bem bacana.
So it is an online activity who is quite nice. And we have a few questions here, and we have a good movement in the chat. So far, the international group, they did not bring questions, just the congratulations. So we have an interesting question here. Could you talk about the changing that happened before in editaries, that not having only one person, but having a council to help the author? That's a nice question. Great, thank you for this question. Before, in the beginning of 2020, we wanted to implement a different way of working to remove a few necks. So as we talked before, we have 192 books publicized. We have in the flow of editaries, we have more than 50 books and 40 books that are going and getting ready.
Para todo mundo. E além de...
So this new shape, new possibility, it was for us to divide and to help everybody. And then we started that possibility in the beginning of 2020, and then we tested. By the end of the year, we had already concluded that it was great. So what are the advantages? So the editorial flow starts they start in the interview. There, it is recommended into the alphabetical order. So the book.
Próxima obra que vai entrar no editário. Então, tá ali o nome dele.
The book select the revisor. And then the revisor, the person who is going to review the book, is going to be giving a follow-up to the author. So he will be talking with the author and embracing the author and helping him. There is the editor, and then the revision of the Portuguese language, and then the editor is there. And then we have the phase of graphic project, diagram phase, so on and so far.
Vai dizer que ele
the author is not going to say that he doesn't know where his book or her books is in editaries. So if any colleague want to mention?
Pelo tema também, muito interessante a gente poder estar aqui debatendo, né?
Good morning, thank you for the time to talk. In this question about the college, about the editor college, I want to reinforce the facilities and talk about the difficulties. And as I see this connection between helper, author, and editor, that we have the opportunity to work. We can work important issues, actual issues, and then we might even have relationship from retro life, and this is a new phase that start when you arrive in editaries. I even reinforce with you that you had arrived in the right moment. And as I see, you gave the continuity to the process, and that was even quite accelerated, even because of the pandemic, and many books have been assisted.
A produzir mais, mas o que eu gostaria que você colocasse aqui, Lani.
What I would like to mention, Lani, is we have this, we have a helper as editors, and we have the helpers from the author, but I see that you have a special helper. You help ourselves, you are there to help ourselves, but beyond that, attending us full time, I see that you have a singular helper towards the divulgation, meaning bringing the book for the world. I would like you to talk about it. Thank you, Liegi. As a matter of fact, I will be talking about my part, and then Rosane talks about her part, because we are together.
Eu evito voluntariar em mais de uma IC, principalmente quando o trabalho tem essa importância, né? Então,
I try to avoid being a volunteer in more than one consensus-centric institution. In my case, I see that when I am in a work, I am only in that thing, with my energies there. The helpers, they are potentialized. And then I am also together with helpers. The synapses, the neosynapses, the penta, which is my biggest help, everything potentialized, Liegi. What I see a concentration of energies in that work. I am not spreading around for other things. And then what I see, in my case, I have a very positive docility towards what I am doing. I have a big will of doing things right. I have been doing this for a long time, and that has been helping a lot. So I have many weak traits, but I am not egocentric towards things that I am doing. So the way I see, people need to work without me existing before or after. Sometimes we repeat things in Conscientiology. I have this habit of doing manual, because we don't need to waste energy with that anymore. So it is in this sense. It is a concentration of energy on top of that activity that I am doing. And there I am there totally 100%. And if I am 100% there, I am with helpers. So I am talking about Conscientiology, I am talking about our science. So every time I have a complex subject, I try to connect with the helpers, and this has been helping me a lot. We know it's not an easy task. We take care of the entire ICCC, all conscientiologists. We involve the egos, the power argumentation, the status of the person in conscientiology. So it is not easy to work with our consciousness. We It's not easy. We all have weak traits and strong traits, and all this public will be going straight forward to editaris. That's why I brought this subject. People need to be aware of the challenges. Nevertheless, the person will be growing up a lot. The developing of the parapsychism, the developing of fraternity. There are so many strong traits that the person can recover that it is amazing. I have a lot of great connection with what I am doing.
And I think I'm recovering many units of lucidity in relation to trade. And sometimes it comes ideas in relation to that. We chat, and Rosanne, she is from the communication, and then we extrapolate our work. Rosanne, would you like to talk about from your side? Yes, I can talk about this and give more opportunity for the questions. We do a division in our work. We work double because each of us, we assume some of coordination of the work, but the work that is related to me, it's the communication because I do have a technical knowledge about it. We talk a little bit about the function helper. Those helper comes from the knowledge, the technical knowledge that we have some subject. So I use my technical knowledge in order to communicate a product that Editaris has a lot. So it's the actions that it helps the marketing of those relative truth in conscientiological relative truth. And we do have lots of receptivity. We attend the demand that people want information. You do have information people want to know. So we do not need to do the bridge. And this technique helps a lot. And we attend author and writers from CCCI. So it's something really good. Because in this sense, we talked about the helpers and how it happens. It comes because of this, the intentionality that it counts, the rapport, the dedication you do. But the aspect, the technical aspect is very important when you put yourself available for that. Let me give an example. One of our partnership, the commercial partnership that we do think about to try to amplify the ways or means that the books can be offered to people. It's amplify the access to these books. So this partnership, it reaches us from a live. Someone passed the email, and then you watch a live. There were a few people only. It's a channel, very little advertised. We were just starting, so we started to find more information about it. And when you are watching a live, it was about this partnership, how the person was working, and the way they were working, it will come to encounter in line with what we were working. And after 1 week, we were in contact directly with the people related to that partnership. And today it's one of our greater partnership and has been helping us in terms of commercial and marketing of Editaris. And it came through communication, through the participation of a live. Thank you, Sumara. I will give you the word, but in terms of divulgation, I'm going to take advantage of what Rosanne said here. This partnership will help us to take our work overseas. And so all the books that is in this marketplace will go overseas. So this partner will distribute Conscientiology, the book, Conscientiological book, all around the planet, no? And this will get a dimension of our advertisement everywhere. Before, we never had that because in terms of distribution of this book, it was very expensive. Now with this partnership, we're going to be distributed around international. And talking about the international people, I would like to talk about the international week that we're going to be having. And as a thank you, I would like to invite Ana Ruiz to talk about the week, International Week. Hello, good morning to everyone. This year, we're going to have the third International Week, which will be happening from 20th August to 29th of August. And we're going to have many different activities with different consciential-centric organizations. And it's important we talk about the activity we're going to have with the Editoriology. We're going to have the release with books in Spanish. We're going to have interviews and activities with the authors. It's going to be 100% online, and we would like to invite you guys to take part of this event. It will be great having you with us. Okay, so we have here, Professor Alani, some questions, but one very interesting question. It's a little bit a mixture of things to understand, no? It's people are talking that it's actually giving lots of clarification, especially for future authors, especially this change of posture for the future author, beside this feedback received by the editors and the reviser. So there is a doubt in the question, no? How does the editor and the reviser can do the prophylaxis, necessary prophylaxis, in order to not put themselves in relation as a position of PhD, no, specialized in front of the author? That's a very interesting question. Currently, I do not know this type of posture among our revisers and editors. Sometimes what might happen, we do have some people from that do not have, they are not volunteer from Editaris, and the person comes just, they have a view of some subject, and they come to give some consultant. They are volunteer from any other IC, and they have isentia, and then they can talk about that subject. However, we do have within the editors a mediator. So this filter happened during when we have feedback. I was going to exactly to talk about this. The mediation. The best prophylaxis is to understand that you are not the author, you are reviser, and you are editor. The publication responsibility is entirely in the author hands. It's the author that brings the original ideas. If you take something to review, it's just the orientation is to qualify, pointing the points that can, the strong traits and the weak traits for that publication. You have the eagle eyes to qualify that publication. This is within your docility, either for the editor and the reviser. But the role of mediator is important. So the mediator is there to combine, to junction ideas that are antagonic. So, and in this moment, enter the parapsychism, the interassistancy. In this moment, enter the implementation of the energetic field, and to understand that sometimes for that author, that feedback, it's sometimes the person is not understanding because the emotional, it's overwhelmed, emotionally they are overwhelmed. So at the moment you start to translate that feedback with the intention that that author go from there recognized and satisfied, and with a gratitude to the work that the revisers and editors spend the time that they spend to do that work, but always with the intention to qualify that work. The reviser, when they are picked, sometimes even the author knows who are the reviser. So no, they do not know exactly because to help that people do not have any other distortion view of that. So that moment we look after the energetic field. So now we do online. Always we have the intention is the publication is from the author. Sometimes some things they are not imposed. They are given suggestions that can qualify the publication. But if the author doesn't accept it, he has the right to do that. But there are some concepts like they are wrong, and then that's inevitable. They need to correct that. And this comes a lot from the capacity of the author to do the self-de-intrusion, the mental somatic, and we do have techniques to have the self-de-intrusion for everybody involved into that. That's it. Osvaldo would like to talk. It's very quick. Miriam talked everything that I was thinking. One thing I noticed as when the editor has more experience, that each publish that reach us, we have like a line, that division. We have a line that define the qualification. Beyond the line is where the author reached. So it's very important that the editor put this line of qualification control, thinking about the author qualities and so on, but understand that less beyond that's below this line, it's impossible we accept. More than that, we refine, and we refine in terms of the author. And this line, it doesn't come already defined. It is constructed as long throughout the experience that the author has with the authors, and the feedback that started to be given to the author. And so it's throughout the whole process. We do have some points, phases in terms of the review of this work, the publication, but there is a feeling from the editors that will be applied to each situation. Okay. Okay, great, Osvaldo. Thank you. Someone else would like to talk? I didn't talk about, I just would like to complement what you said. You're talking about when the publication reach us and the first impact that the author has. And at the end, when the publication is ready, and then it comes to Portuguese revision. And so I think these questions goes more into when the author is receiving the feedback in terms of content, and sometimes the person has that sensation, wow, I'm gonna get a lower mark. But in this situation, how do you do the prophylaxis? So we do from the beginning, and also the Portuguese language as well, the contextual linguistic. We actually give to 2 revisers that they know the Portuguese language, and the editor does this prophylaxis and do a revision as well. And then this editor will confront all the revisions, and then will pass those information to the author. And also, it's very important when the author accepts this is important to do a devolution, no? A feedback direct to the author, and that's when we have the intrusion. Sometimes the author gets a little bit defensive, but at the end he started to look, he's turned into a reviser. So, and afterwards he turned into a reviser. It's very visible, the intrusion among the team, and also how we perceive the synergies in the work with the author. I really like this part. And usually the author usually put themselves available to this, and the prophylaxis happen at especially at the end of this work. It's very interesting you saying that. Liege, she's an editor, but she does really well, and she does this feedback about the Portuguese language as well. It's a very important part as well. As she said, when going back to what I said before, at the end we have the reconciliation, we have friendship, evolutionary friendship, and everything starts to calm down. From that point, all the concepts were accepted, and then now it's going to be for the final phase of editorialization. And it's not only this, no, Lana. At the moment, it's in there we're going to go even more deeper in that revision. So we feel, and that's the opportunity to see the things that pass. And I remembered in your comment, sometimes it happens at the beginning of the revisions, no? It happens some inertia of the author to start to work on it, and but it's very common when it's at the end of the revision. The author, it doesn't stop to review. He wants to review. He look and he looks at all the formats, and so one of the things that we observe when the author get involved, he become himself a reviser. He wants to look to improve and to improve what the work is doing, and this inevitably will have an impact in the text. And the person that become more involved, they learn more, and the person that is involved in the whole process, they will learn more about this action, and this will reflect on what they write. Maybe the next publication, it comes with another level, because the person develop that look towards the revision. They start to like to do revision. Guilherme, I really agree with you. I remember when I finished, the finished levels of the manual I wrote, I probably spent 10 years, 10 hours easy doing the revision. I just tend to eat something and go back doing the revision. Luimara, would you like to say something? We have one doubt about books, self-biography books. Could you talk about some particularities in relation to self-biographical books, and what can't be missing in these books without dramatization? I think it is some subject that we talked about, no? The writing. Okay, I'm gonna send these questions to some of my colleagues. Okay, I look. Could you synthesize the question? It's the person wants to know about self-biographical books, especially biographical. We do know that the human being is very complex. We all are very complex, and we know that. And the proof is when the person writes and manifests themselves, complex as while they are speaking and when they write as well. And sometimes in the self-biography, at least in the time that I've been editors, we've been receiving lots of self-biography. First, we need to be careful with the excessive exposure from the author, which we wouldn't add in anything for that author. I remember when I did the formation with the author's formation, Professor Valls used to say that you need to be certain that after 10 years, the publication of your book, you do not regret of anything that you've been written. So with the self-biography publications, sometimes the person goes strong with dramatization, self-guilt, self-victimization, or sometimes over-criticize mom, dad, society, because in that moment, it's like the person is doing a catharsis. So there is the original manuscript, and then after that, we enter this the self-discernment, and the person needs to stop now for a while, now for just put there for 15 days, do lots of vibration state, and then reread that chapter and see if it's in line with what you actually want to publish. And this helps that to clean up from future complications, even in the group karmic interpretation. And because we are not an island, and even the island we see they have underneath, now in the deep sea, they have connections. So we do need to preserve those relationships, and we need to be self-cosmetic because of our self-exposure, and also to expose people that they probably won't be agreeing with that angle of the fact. We can't forget that we have the fact, the parafact, and the vision, which is my point of view when I'm writing. I'm giving my vision, and sometimes that will be there for centuries. So we do need to be very careful with those self-biographies, with the exposition of thirds or another person, and the author needed to think in how this fact will be assisting myself and other person, and will help to understand about the subject that I want to bring. Because when you talk about self-biography, you are doing your self-checking, your self-exposition. So you can't correct that anymore. And the reviser is gonna look and is gonna point out the excesses. And sometimes they will do a destined surgery. They will do a prophylaxis for a future interpretation. Interpretation group karmic. The biographic, is good, it is, but we need to be a little bit careful with that. I think it's very punctual, your answer. According to the author of this, the text, we do not have anything writing or that is you can't be retouched. So I do not have anything to assist. I just it's a book. It's actually a very exposition, and the guinea pig. So we do have one more question. The colleague of the International, she talks about a book, Tony Muskov, that it's for us to open our hand about the strategy to defend our ego in terms of authenticity. So can you relate the conquer of authenticity between the relation between editor and the writer? And she congratulates you for your exposition. Very, very tricky question, but from what I understand, you would like you talked about let it aside our ego and be more authentic. So now the question is, can you relate the conquer of authenticity with the relation between the editor and the writer, I think this is very possible if both they have an affinity, one being very clear what they expose, what they are writing, how they want to work, and at the same time to be in line with what the editor is giving them, to having an overview of the thing, will give the feedback about what is written, and they will build a better publication. That's a question that answer that comes to me. Perfect. We would like them to request your final consideration, because we are reaching our final time, and unfortunately, but we know that the content raises more debate and conversation for this theme. One thing that I couldn't say, but I would like to say, it's in the paper, that everything we are saying, we're chatting, and this theme, and the themes that we brought, the people that we brought from Editarius, we build that and we put on paper. So it's in our paper. It's we actually are about to publish in the manual of publication from Editarius. We do have 16 people writing this publication, and we are trying to clarify as much as possible without giving any room for misunderstanding or hidden points about this editorial flow. So, and Rosanne wants to talk something about this as well. I think it's worth we invite people for the live that we're gonna give accordingly the CCI calendar, the 1st of August, where we're going to talk with people about this approach of Editarius to open up, to expose how it will work, and help people to reach us with their books. And so we're going to give on 1st of August, where we're going to give a live about this. It's going to be a chat with the editor. If you have any doubt about publication, books publication, and how it works, we're going to be there to answer your questions. What do we do? How can I go and do? And so it's one more opportunity for people to understand the process of editing, and take their doubts and motivate themselves to bring their publications. So it's great. We're going to start a campaign with the clarification in terms of the editorial flow, for people to understand more what is involved in that, to make very clear, as the lady said, the life of the books, the people that want to do some work, they are, it's important to think, what's the way that our work gonna go. So I would like to thank, I'm grateful for this opportunity. I think the debate, the contribution was very rich. I would like to thank a lot about everybody that's involved with that, people from Tertulia, my friends from Tertulian as well, so the editors and the people that contributed with their questions. And I would like to say to everyone, we are with our open doors waiting for you guys. Any doubt you have, we have a very direct channel. We have publique seu livro, @editares.com.br. We do receive any, through these emails, any clarification and doubt, and you just send us an email, drop us an email, and we will answer that. And that's it. I would like to thank everybody for the opportunity, and we see you guys on 1st of August, without doubt. Professor Alani, we make from ours your thank you, and your person, Lani Galdino, editor, teacher, that brought this theme, which is very important, with this multidimensional and the interassistiential approach, the publication of books in Conscientiology. So we had 147 access, and informed that we have 47 publication to download available for you, and the links has been marketing in the three sites that we are having the information. And thank you very much, and see you next week with the new theme we're going to have in Tertulia Matinal.